For context, I should mention that I was only 28 when this happened. I had recently been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, and the doctors were still trying to figure out the right medication cocktail for me. The side effects were brutal, making every work day a challenge. But bills don't pay themselves, so there I was, pulling double shifts at the gas station. That one day had been especially rough. I've been standing for over 10 hours. My legs felt like they were made of lead, and the fluorescent lights were giving me a splitting headache. The only silver lining was that I was training this new coworker who was picking things up incredibly fast. She was one of those rare people who just got it. We were in the middle of showing her how to handle prepaid transactions when this skinny guy walked in. He looked harmless enough, probably in his late 30s, wearing a worn-out business casual outfit that had seen better days. My new coworker greeted him with the usual customer service inquiry. The skinny man responded that he would be filling up but wasn't sure of the exact amount. Pretty standard request. In our state, all pumps are prepay, but we usually make exceptions for people filling up their tanks. We just hold on to their money and give back the change afterward. My coworker assured him it wouldn't be a problem. The man put $50 on the counter and headed to the bathroom. His wife was already at the pump, so my coworker authorized it for her. The pump hit $20, and suddenly all hell broke loose. This woman, and I kid you not, started having a full-blown meltdown at the pump. She was kicking it, punching it, throwing her purse around like she was auditioning for a role in an exorcism movie. When she spotted us watching through the window, she transformed from possessed human to raging bull. She came charging into the store, face red as a tomato. She immediately started screaming at my coworker, demanding to know why we hadn't turned off the pump. When my coworker explained that her husband had said he was filling up, the woman exploded, calling my coworker a stupid cow and insisting her husband had only asked for $5 worth of gas. I felt my blood pressure rising. Between my MS symptoms and this woman's attitude, I was done playing nice. I contradicted her version of events and asked her husband to confirm. He backed us up, stating that he had indeed asked to fill up the tank. This sent her into an even bigger frenzy. She started jumping up and down, screaming about how we were stealing from her children, how we were ruining their lives. Then she did something that crossed every line. She lunged across the counter, trying to grab my coworker. The skinny man just stood there, mouth hanging open like he was watching some bizarre street performance. I'd had enough. I shouted for silence, and the store went dead quiet. When I demanded to know what she thought she was doing, she threatened to beat up both me and my coworker. That's when something in me snapped. Maybe it was the MS, maybe it was the double shift, or maybe I just decided life was too short for this nonsense. I smiled, turned to my coworker, and started taking off my name tag. I told her my login information and instructed her to call the police after logging me out. The woman asked what I was doing, and I explained that since she wanted to fight, I was logging out to accommodate her request. My coworker was already dialing 911. I invited the woman to step outside so we could settle this quickly. She started stammering, suddenly less confident. When she protested that I couldn't do this, I assured her that I absolutely could. I started walking toward her, and finally her husband snapped out of his trance. He tried to intervene, saying he would handle the situation, but I insisted that I don't take threats lightly. Right then, a police officer walked in. He took one look at me and sighed, asking who had riled me up. The woman immediately claimed that I had threatened her, but her husband quickly contradicted her, pointing out that she had started the whole thing. The officer reviewed the security footage, and that's when things got interesting. Not only did they arrest her for attempting to assault my coworker, but they also found meth in her purse. Her husband looked like someone had just punched him in the gut. The skinny man paid for the gas and bought us both drinks, apologizing profusely. A few months later, he came back to the store and told us the rest of the story. Turns out he had cancer and had no idea his wife was using drugs. He had filed for divorce and gotten custody of their kids. I moved away shortly after that, but last I heard, he was finishing his final round of chemo. Sometimes I wonder if he made it. But one thing's for sure, I bet he never lets anyone else pump his gas anymore. Before I transferred to university, I was doing theater at my local state college while working on my associate degree. Our theater director was amazing. Strict during rehearsals, but super sweet otherwise. When COVID hit, I had to pause my studies and move back home. I ended up getting a job on campus, and my mom started taking classes there too. She got involved with a theater program since our college allowed alumni and community members to participate in productions. My mom landed a main role in one of the plays, so I volunteered to help with costumes. Everyone in the cast was great except for this one older man in his late 60s who had recently started taking drama classes. He was an absolute nightmare to deal with. Whenever the director gave him direction about how to deliver his lines, he'd argue back or blame his scene partners. If anyone forgot their lines, he'd throw a fit. He even snapped at me multiple times about costume decisions. I wanted to quit, but I stuck it out for our director's sake. When the play ended, I thought I'd never have to deal with him again. A few months later, after finishing my degree, my mom was still active in theater and doing costumes for a new play. The Nightmare Man had somehow become the assistant director because apparently no one else wanted the role. My mom would come home with horror stories about him yelling at actors behind the director's back and arguing about everything from blocking to line delivery. Then disaster struck. The lead actress stopped showing up to rehearsals. With less than a week until opening night, our director handed me the script and begged me to take over. I had done several shows with her before, so I agreed. That's when I got to experience his behavior firsthand. During our rushed rehearsals, he constantly interrupted to demonstrate how his way was better. During dress rehearsal, he screamed at us backstage about props we wouldn't even use until Act 2, until the director had to stop everything to tell him to be quiet. Later, when I was following the director's instructions about costume placement, he yelled at me and told my mom I was disrespectful. The night of the show, we had two performances. Between shows, I was in the women's dressing room with my mom doing hair touch-ups when he burst in. He started screaming at us, demanding to know why we weren't on stage yet. He wasn't even supposed to be in the women's dressing room. He should have just called from outside to let us know we had 5 minutes until places. I rushed to get my costume sorted while the other actresses yelled for him to get out. When I was heading to the stage entrance with my mom helping with my microphone, I heard him cursing and saying my name. Then I heard him complaining about how disrespectful I was and telling someone I should just do my job. I confronted him, asking why he was talking badly about me right before I had to go on stage. He just yelled at me to stay out of it. I told him to stop talking about me and focus on the show. That's when he punched me in the shoulder from behind, hard enough that I almost fell. I turned around, and in that split second, I chose to yell instead of fight back since my mom was between us. I shouted at him that he couldn't hit people and that he had just hit me. He threatened to do it again and told me once more to stay out of it. He started charging at me, but my mom slammed him into the wall and got in his face. She warned him to never dare touch her daughter. Suddenly, his whole demeanor changed, and he started repeatedly apologizing and telling us to hit him instead. This all happened during the pre-show announcements, so the audience didn't hear anything. The other actors and stagehands saw everything though. One actress helped me get on stage, and apparently I performed perfectly, though I barely remember any of it. While I was performing, one of the actresses threatened to call security if he didn't leave. The director made him leave the building after chewing him out. After the show, they told me I could report him to campus security if I wanted to, but they had already gone home for the night. The next morning, I reported him to campus police. When they interviewed witnesses, they discovered even more horrible behavior. He had been body-shaming one actress, inappropriately touching an 18-year-old actor who was too scared to speak up, and terrorizing the teenage stagehands by screaming in their faces. He got expelled from the school and banned from all campus events. But our director and I weren't done. She contacted her entire theater network, and now he's banned from every theater company in our region. He'll never get the chance to abuse anyone in theater again. Back in 2008, I was pretty careless with my online security. You know how it is. You think it won't happen to you until it does. I had this Gmail account that I used for everything, protected by what I now realize was an embarrassingly weak password. The kind of password you probably guess in your first few tries if you were trying to break in. I used the same email and password combination for my PayPal account, which was linked to my old checking account. I hadn't used that checking account much. It was basically empty except for a few dollars here and there. One morning I logged into my Gmail and immediately knew something was wrong. The interface looked different, and there were emails I didn't recognize in my sent folder. My stomach dropped as I realized I'd been hacked. I immediately rushed to check my PayPal account, and there it was, a fresh $500 transfer to some random account I'd never seen before. I called the bank right away to report the unauthorized access to my account. After going through the standard verification process, I explained what had happened. The representative assured me they would close the account immediately and that any pending withdrawals would be rejected. They offered to help me open a new account, but I politely declined, saying I would handle that separately. I wasn't done yet. The PayPal transfer was still pending, and I noticed something interesting. The destination account's email address was visible. Time to do some digging. A few Google searches later, I struck gold. The email belonged to some college student in California. This guy wasn't exactly careful about his online presence. His Facebook profile was public, showing pictures of him partying at his college campus. His Instagram was full of photos with his family tagged. He even had his college listed right there on his LinkedIn profile. I decided to send him a message through one of his social media accounts. I laid out the situation plainly, telling him I knew about his hack and the attempted theft of $500. I gave him two options: either send the money back immediately, or I would file a police report, inform his parents about his criminal activities, and report him to his college. What he didn't know was that the original $500 transfer would fail anyway because I'd already closed my bank account. But he didn't need to know that part. At first, he tried playing dumb, asking what I was talking about. I called his bluff, mentioning the PayPal transfer from the hacked Gmail account and pointing out that I had all the evidence, including his email address. I even threw in that I knew his mother worked at the local high school, suggesting I could send the evidence to her. He quickly changed his tune, pleading that it was a mistake. I remained firm, telling him to send the $500 back immediately or I would start making calls. He gave in and agreed to send the money right away. Within minutes, I got a PayPal notification. $500 had been sent to my account. Just as I expected, his attempt to take money from my account failed because the bank had closed it. But his $500, that went straight through to me. After I had the money safely in my account, I gathered all the evidence, the unauthorized access, the transfer attempts, everything except our conversation, and sent it all to his parents and his college's administration. I made sure to include screenshots showing the connection between his email and the hacking attempt. A few days later, he sent me a furious message accusing me of breaking my promise. He claimed I had ruined everything by reporting him after he returned the money. I pointed out that I had never actually promised anything. I had said he could either return the money or I would report him, not that I wouldn't report him if he did return it. I suggested he think twice before hacking people's accounts in the future. He couldn't exactly go to the police and say, "Hey, I tried to steal $500 from someone, but they tricked me into giving them $500 instead." He was stuck, and he knew it. I never heard from him again, but I did notice his social media accounts went private shortly after. I moved the money to a new bank account, set up proper two-factor authentication on everything, and made sure all my passwords were strong and unique. So in the end, my hacker's greed cost him $500, a very uncomfortable conversation with his parents, and probably some serious explaining to do at his college. And well, I got a free $500, a crash course in cybersecurity, and a pretty good story to tell. I was your typical middle school kid who lived for recess. Our school didn't have many entertainment options, just a basic playground, a few basketballs, and some chalk for Foursquare. But we made it work. Knockout was our thing. Every single recess you'd find at least 15 of us lined up at the basketball court, ready to play. For those who don't know, knockout is this fast-paced basketball game where players line up to shoot, and if the person behind you makes their shot before you do, you're out. One Tuesday, during our regular knockout session, our math teacher walked up to us with that look on her face. You know, the one adults get when they're about to ruin your fun. She called us over to talk about the game we were playing. When I asked if something was wrong, she explained that several teachers had noticed our game seemed too rough and that knocking other players' balls away wasn't kind or considerate. My friend tried to argue that it was literally the point of the game, but the teacher wasn't having it. She told us that from now on, we couldn't touch another player's ball during the game and needed to keep our hands to ourselves. She then proceeded to give us a 15-minute lecture about sportsmanship and consideration for others, which ate into our precious recess time. We all stood there, nodding along, while secretly exchanging looks of shock. A few days later, we decided to ignore the new rule. I mean, come on, it's called knockout for a reason. We were back to playing the original way when the physical education teacher spotted us. She reminded us about the conversation we just had about the rules. When I tried to explain, she cut me off and issued a final warning. The next day, we played the original way again. Look, we weren't trying to be rebellious teenagers. The game just didn't make sense without the knockout part. This time, both teachers approached us, and the math teacher announced that knockout was completely banned from recess. We were devastated, but my friend, who always had the best ideas, came up with a brilliant solution. The next day, we were back on the court, playing what we called flinger. The assistant principal walked up to us, her face already red. She scolded us, saying she thought they had made it clear that knockout was banned. My friend cleverly responded that we weren't playing knockout at all. When the assistant principal accused us of trying to fool her, my friend explained that this was a completely different game called flinger, where instead of knocking the ball, we fling it. Totally different game according to him. The assistant principal just ordered us to stop playing whatever this was and stormed off, probably to complain to the principal about us. We thought we were so clever, but the following Monday, every single classroom had a new notice posted on their windows. In big bold letters it read, "Official rules of knockout flinger." But here's the thing, they couldn't stop us. We just came up with new names every time. By the end of the semester, we'd gone through swoosher, pull tap, bounce out, and my personal favorite, definitely not knockout. The teachers eventually gave up trying to keep track of all our new games. The next year, when the new batch of 7th graders came in, we passed down our sacred knowledge of all the alternative names for knockout. It became something of a tradition. Every time the teachers banned one name, we'd just switch to another. I heard they're still playing basketball game version 12.5 during recess.